Snafu is a podcast that contains adult themes and language. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey guys, welcome to Snafu, where the situation's normal, all fucked up. This is the podcast where we tell you stories of true crime and true mystery and just truly fucked up shit that happens every single day, and then we forget about it, so we decide we'd remind you. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Corey. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We're on part 4 of our NXIVM series. Yes, this is still going on in the news by the time this one was recorded, but Shannon and I are taking the joy behind getting you guys all caught up to date with what's going on and letting you guys know that there's a real live sex cult that's in the news right now.
Yeah, alive and well in America, Mexico, and Canada. But luckily, it seems like the leader of this particular cult has been placed behind bars awaiting trial. So where we left you off is we told you all about Keith Raniere, we told you all about NXIVM, we eventually told you all about DOS the Vow last time. Talked about sex and
we talked about a lot.
Slaves.
We've got, these big players, people who are in charge of the Seagram's, gin fortune, and
a small part of it. They're 2 out of 7 kids.
The 2 of the heiresses to that fortune. We've got Hollywood stars coming and going into this cult. Some of them leaving it. Some of them leading it.
We even have famous attorneys making appearances.
And we've got the world's genius boy running this whole damn thing, which no one knew about him until he started running a sex cult. And now they're running to Mexico. And they're caught in Mexico.
Well, yeah, essentially that's where we left you guys off at. So if you haven't listened to any of the parts before this, you should probably do that because I think you're going to be totally lost.
There are spoilers to the NXIVM story if you haven't listened to our first 3 episodes.
So today we're going to just tell you exactly what's going on in the news right now. So where we did leave you off was Keith Raniere heard that the FBI was getting involved in questioning NXIVM members, and he and one of those Seagram heiresses fled to a compound in Monterrey, Mexico, after the damning tell-all article was released October 17, 2017.
So are they just naming all their different places, the compounds? They got the compound in
No,
Clifton
it's
Park
just considered a compound.
Oh, so they got guard towers and shit.
If it's in Mexico,
it's
probably.
Mexico.
So, in this article that was released, it was discussed where Sarah Edmondson told her story about being a part of NXIVM, and then, more importantly, about how she became a slave in DOS, followed up with the pictures of the branding on her pelvis. So if you see that in the news, that's going to be Sarah's brand.
What was that show that we just watched that talks about this as well?
Okay, so Corey's talking about, there's a show on Hulu, and it's called Cults, I think, or something. Okay. It's done by 2020, investigative interviewers. Yeah. And the very first one was, bam, NXIVM and Keith Raniere. And, we thought we had made a mistake because when we watched it, there was Sarah talking about her experience, and then she says how it's Lauren that told her about the paddling or getting put into a cage. But and so we thought we had actually made a mistake, but turns out that in the FBI report, and we'll get there, that also is something Allison Mack said as well.
Yeah.
Well, and it's important, you guys should definitely check it out. It's fantastic to watch. They did a really good job in questioning. In fact, I get a little disappointed because they get to that point where it's almost a really good interview, and then they just leave her off the hook. They let her go without giving the hard questions to Sarah, because let's face facts, Sarah has been a member of NXIVM for 12 years.
Yeah.
No matter what's happened to her at the very end of this, she's been doing stuff for NXIVM for 12 years. And that's where I'm going to try and be unbiased, but I can't help but say that everyone we're going to start talking about, everyone that's put into the criminal aspect of all this and going in legal trials, there's not a single actual not guilty person. They are all guilty of some activity for the last between, all the way from 6 years to literally 20.
Yeah.
So don't think, oh, poor them. I really want you guys to think about what these people probably have been doing behind the scenes. And remember that, yeah, Corey's right. A lot of these people are just legitimate actors. That's their life. That's their profession. So you can watch a woe is me, tell all. but never forget that these people can turn it on and off at will.
Yeah, absolutely. And, also just a word to the wise, if you guys do decide to join a sex cult, be careful what you do because it all comes back to you.
Yeah, right? At least it's one of the funner cults, maybe, right?
That's
sex
our PS.
cult. Woo!
Have you seen Keith?
Yeah, it's pretty gross. I'm sorry, I take it back.
Maybe not. Maybe if it was me, but... So just to kind of get ourselves back into it, once the article came out, many NXIVM members found themselves being questioned under the FBI. And the FBI had become involved because Sarah's interview and the fact that many people, like Catherine Oxenberg, who's India Oxenberg's mother, were filing complaints with the New York State officials demanding an investigation in NXIVM.
I think we mentioned it last time, but tell me again who Catherine Oxenberg is and why everybody would kind of recognize her.
So Catherine Oxenberg was part of a soap opera back in the 80s called Dynasty, and this is that kind of soap opera where they're slapping the shit out of each other, and you can kind of make a drinking game
White
off
ladies
of it.
who are like waspy and slapping the crap out of one another.
Yeah, so probably like a more exciting Golden Girls. Or Golden Girls meets Thunderdome.
Yeah, and so I think she's actually related to royalty as well. I think her mother is royalty. So
really?
This is like a pretty big family, and India started joining NXIVM because her mom took her to one of these classes, and India was the one that wanted to continue. So, yeah, like Corey said, there's other complaints filed to New York State other than just the stuff that Sarah and some other members have put out. And the thing is once the FBI starts questioning a lot of members, they start seeking out their leader. They're expecting Keith to be there and for him to disprove these allegations that everyone's hearing. Because, they're crazy to boot and you're expecting them to be false, but they really want Keith to be there to say so. But Keith ran away to Mexico, and that's not a great look.
Yeah, no, and especially, it's kind of tricky, too, because... the last time Keith left the U.S. was to go to Fiji for one of the heiress's islands. He doesn't leave very often.
It's been like 2 years.
Where all his women are. I was trying to figure out a word that other than women, but I didn't want to be rude.
Harem?
I was going to say harem, but I didn't want to be rude because it's not like it's their idea. So he doesn't want to leave the safety of Clifton Park, and now that he's actually in Mexico and just coincides with what's going on, there's only really one reason why he's gone. It's because of the FBI.
So, at first, Keith is pretty reachable when he gets to Mexico. Reachable as reachable as he'd been before. Like, not everybody can just reach out to Keith Raniere and get him, but you have to climb through that ladder of people to reach him. But he's still running contact through his regular phone. He's using internet accounts. He basically told members that what they were hearing in the media was false, that it could not be trusted. He tells them that the media is dishonorable.
Oh, great.
This is his typical routine. He does this anytime something came out about NXIVM or him or his pedophile ways. Oh, the media is dishonorable. Oh, you can't trust them. And the thing is he told members that if they chose to leave him now, it was because they were under the sway of cognitive dissonance. He said that they had decided he was bad, and therefore they had to make him very bad so that their defection can make them feel good. So he's still fucking with their brains to keep them in line, even though he's not even there, and he knows, the Hawks are circling in.
Yeah, he's just one of those kind of guys that's going to turn everything to his quote-unquote advantage. And, if you can make and I think the cognitive dissonance story from him is just him trying to make himself feel better. Because it's kind of pretty damning when you hear, hey, that guy you've been following and kind of praying to every day is a pedophile.
Has sex slaves and is a pedophile, yeah.
Yeah, and, it's kind of hard to it's kind of hard to make that easy in your head and make that okay. It's so much easier to go the opposite way. So he's the one that's broken. But Keith even spoke with the New York Times magazine writer who came to Mexico to interview him and Allison Mack. So he's been out there talking to people. And in fact, many of the higher-ranking women involved in DOS followed Keith to his Mexico compound.
Yeah, he ran, they followed, they came with him.
He told the journalist that the claim that he could brainwash anyone was ridiculous, which, remember, his neurolinguistic programming is him basically saying that he can correct any type of flaw in you, from smoking to a nervous tic to Tourette's. So yeah, he might...
He actually talks about reprogramming you all the time, but now it's brainwashing is impossible.
Brainwashing and reprogramming are two different things, apparently. But according to Keith, he'll go and he's like, well, brainwashing is a farce and scientifically impossible. So, we've got this kind of guy who doesn't know one way from the other.
Yeah, he just uses big words, and he kind of knows the meaning of some things, and he basically threatens his members with bad feelings if they were to abandon him now. He uses words like, defecting. It's supposed to make you feel like absolute shit and realize, like, after you defect, nobody's going to talk to you. All your friends this whole time, once you're in NXIVM, everyone in your life is in NXIVM. If you leave NXIVM, you got nothing.
It's like the Greek system back in college.
Yeah, you mentioned that before.
Yeah.
I think you're a little bitter.
Maybe just a little bit. Fun fact, guys, don't do that.
All right, so again, at this point, some NXIVM members and actually several DOS members do leave the program. They actually get the braveness, like they leave. And remember, the fact is if you ever left this program, they threatened to use all that collateral. And it wasn't just like releasing all that awful information about you. It was literally about taking your property from you. So soon, the DOS defectors ended up finding themselves with cease and desist letters sent to them from a Mexican attorney hired by Claire Bronfman, the woman that took Keith to Mexico. And there are emails in Keith's email account that show Keith and Claire planning out these letters before they were sent. Like, they were hunting after the women who defected.
PSA again, don't put anything in writing.
Why the hell are y'all using the internet like this? Like, it gets to a really ridiculous point. Like, the hell are you thinking?
I was actually just watching a TV show, Cloak and Dagger. And there's one character who's like writing everything down in a map, and they're like, if they ever found you doing this to try to fight crime and you're making a map out of it, it's pretty damning evidence. Don't put anything down.
Everybody puts in their email. Like, there's not someone somewhere on some other end at Google or Yahoo or somewhere on the internet that's able to find everything you're using. You're using someone else's program.
Yeah,
this is insane.
Use smoke signals or 2 cans and a string. That can't be tracked, most likely.
I mean, we will get to the point. Like, I'm going to discuss at what levels, like, electronic-wise, they've been documenting everything they've been doing.
It gets real exciting, guys.
It does. This is going to get so wild today. I can't even freaking wait. I'm just, I'm going to take a drink. Hold on. Okay, I'm excited. Let's get this. Even after they send the cease and desist letters, Claire Bronfman is not done. She actually makes multiple attempts to have criminal charges brought up against Sarah Edmondson. Like, we've kind of tried to tell you guys before that if you cross NXIVM, you cross Keith, you're going to find yourself in court.
Yeah.
But this is the real, like, his hound dog. The Bronfman sisters have always been his money backers, but because of the money, they've always also been like his little attack dogs when it comes to legal force to keep people quiet.
When you have that kind of money, you know people. You know what I mean? You're going to have family attorneys, and even if you don't, they're going to know someone.
Well, not even just that, but if you can afford to constantly be in court, just about everybody else can't. You can literally destroy someone by keeping them in court long enough.
Yeah, that's true.
And what is it to an heiress? Like, eventually they'll just, like, you'll win no matter what. And she's going after these women, and she was going after Sarah.
But so after the New York Times Magazine interview with Keith, he moved to a villa in Puerto Vallarta, which is in Mexico.
Puerto Vallarta.
I'm not even going to try to pronounce it in Spanish. Sorry for all our Spanish-speaking people. I don't. And he went phone silent. So at this point, he's kind of dropped off the face of the world. He also obtained private, untraceable email account. So he's going the route of the drug dealer. On January 18th in 2018, an Eastern District of New York's United States magistrate judge signed a search warrant for Keith's Yahoo email account because people still use Yahoo, apparently. Yahoo produced information associated with the account on February 1st. So, you guys want this from this creepy guy? Here's 10 days, and here you go.
Yeah, they just collected it all and provided everything over.
Yep. And from the information that was gathered, it showed evidence that Keith created DOS. So there's an email from August 10th, 2015, between co-conspirator 1, titled Vow 3, and that had an attached letter. The letter pledged the writers full and complete life to Keith.
Oh my god.
Dun dun dun. It described terms of slave and master to describe the writer and Keith, and it identified collateral to cement the vow made. The collateral was a letter regarding the writer's parents that would destroy their character. A contract that transferred custody of any children birthed by the writer to Keith if the writer broke their commitment to Keith. A contract transferring ownership of the writer's home to Keith if the commitment was broken was also in this letter. And finally, the letter addressed to social services alleging abuse of the writer's nephews. So that's, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 big things in there?
Those are life destroyers. That's your physical home. That's the promise of your unbirthed children, which seems like archaic.
Yeah, I think the last time people did that, it was a dragon that took it.
There's even a letter to child services, be it false or true. But it's life ruining.
Yeah, you get that investigating you, and you're a famous, let's just call her an actress. Call her Alex Mack.
All right, so on July 12th, 2015, Keith received an email from a different slave, and that email requested edits from Keith to a series of passages in which the woman writing to him describes a vow of total obedience to Keith. He then forwarded that email to his Yahoo email account so he can work off that one.
Great, why don't you just...
Genius.
Yeah.
October 1st, 2015, Keith answered an email correspondence with one of his other slaves with, quote, I think it would be good for you to own a fuck toy slave for me that you could groom and use as a tool to pleasure me.
What kind of creepy motherfucking neckbeard bullshit incel is this?
And then, October 23rd, so just like 22 days later, he suggests to the same woman that she recruit a slave who would seduce him.
Because, people would actively do that.
This is the formation of DOS. And the whole point of DOS was for him to have, and again, quotes, fuck toy slaves, unquote, like, end quote, for Keith to seduce him. So he felt like these women wanted him. That's like the whole point was that he wouldn't have to go out of his way for these women to actively, like, recruit him into sex.
That's like when you are in a relationship for a long enough time, you go to the bar and you play the stranger game. And you try to pick up your spouse or long-term relationship at the bar. It's kind of what it sounds like, but Keith doesn't have the suave ability to even have a girlfriend in the first place.
When you have zero ability and you just force people to, like, come get you.
Yeah.
So attached with all these correspondences is WhatsApp chats.
Because WhatsApp is the best program to use to keep anything.
I'm just saying, like, here's just more evidence. Like, you're just saving evidence.
Yeah.
As we said, these emails were turned over on February 1st, and then on February 14th,
Happy Valentine's Day.
The FBI complaint and affidavit is filed. So, the FBI is a report that was just enough for charges to be brought up against Keith and his followers. The writer of the report says this is not all the information I've garnered. This is just what we need in order, I think, to advise why we need some kind of arrest.
Yeah.
And the report was compiled from interviews from 8 victims as well as many firsthand witnesses. And it is also made up from the information garnered from the electronic evidence as well as several search warrants. So search warrants were placed out and homes were searched and things were found and it's crazy we're going to talk about. A good majority of the report is basically identifying Keith like we did before, like where we did this series and talked about Keith and everything in his past. Like the report really starts off talking about like Keith and explaining his prior pyramid scheme with Consumers Byline, his creation of NXIVM and the idea of collateral, the creation of DOS and the slave master ratio. Basically, like I said, it's a lot of what we've already told you. Interestingly enough, DOS, also known as the Vow, is described as an organized criminal group that operates in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico that affects interstate and foreign commerce. This essentially seems to be the reason why they're bringing forth charges, is because they can say that this activity affects commerce.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be, there's definitely a good reason for it, and it's doing a lot of international business, sort of. Otherwise, it's just a swingers group. So in this report, we have CC1 and CC2, Jane Doe 1 and Jane Doe 2. So this is going to get a little bit confusing. CC, just for those who don't recall from our last episode, is co-conspirator. Just giving everyone, abbreviations here. And all of them are only described via their relationship with Keith and NXIVM and the Vow. But we're going to go off, our suspicion and say that CC1 is Allison Mack. There's a lot of information that we've seen that points to her as CC1.
Yeah, and they don't name names, but he does a very good job as identifying aspects of these people so you can figure out who they are.
Yeah.
So, and I'm just going to go ahead and say this. We're not going to speculate on who the Jane Does are. That's not right for us to do.
Yeah, that's beyond our reach at this point.
The co-conspirators, They deserve no protection, and we're gonna go full out and speculate and tell you who we think they are. So, yeah. When it comes to CC1, like we said, we think it's Allison Mack because it is the person who co-developed a NXIVM session called The Source that focused on improving actors' performance skills.
Yeah, and that's, if you guys remember, that's what Allison Mack kind of came to Keith about. She came to Keith to try to increase her acting ability. She's kind of worried that she's going nowhere, and she saw what he can do with neurolinguistic programming and kind of fell in love with it.
So the two of them together created The Source, and that is who they say CC1 is.
And then CC2 has been involved in NXIVM for several years before joining DOS. And in 2016, she co-founded the Delegates with Keith. And that's another small group within NXIVM. It's a business that provides a network of people who can perform tasks for people in the NXIVM community in exchange for a fee. So it's, kind of just, a business network.
What it really comes down to is NXIVM is so expensive that so many people tend to go into debt trying to keep up with being a part of NXIVM and taking continuous courses. And so when you can't pay for these courses, at some point someone in NXIVM will come to you and say, okay, look, maybe you can't financially afford this, but you definitely need to keep taking these courses. Let's work out a deal. And so they came up with the Delegates. And the Delegates is just a way for you to work off your debt to NXIVM. So, hey, someone in the NXIVM community wants their house cleaned. Well, guess who gets to go clean it?
You do!
Yep, and that's the Delegates.
Yeah, and CC2 is also known to be CC1's direct slave. According to artvoice.com, CC2 is India Oxenberg.
Yep. Did you see that coming?
So,
did you think it was Lauren? I did. But yeah, I didn't really quote a lot from artvoice.com. I try and stay away from websites and articles that seem to have a bias, especially like the Frank report. He's a past member, and I don't say that what he's providing isn't accurate information, but he definitely has feelings about this program. But I'm gonna quote Art Voice here because they're just saying India made this program.
Yeah,
it would seem to us, if you're gonna suggest that, it would probably be India.
And it's one of the only sources that we were able to dig up that pointed a name to CC2.
And India is definitely a member of DOS the Vow. She told her mother that she's been branded.
Yeah.
So it's no doubt that she's been a part of this, but this is the high-ranking level that maybe she was attending at.
Yep.
So Jane Doe 1 was an actress who began NXIVM classes in 2015 with CC1. January 2016, CC1 invited what we're going to call Jane Doe 1 as JD1. All right, we're just going to try and limit these so we don't have to keep saying co-conspirator and Jane Doe.
Yeah.
So in the end, I ended up kind of just quoting a lot of what this FBI report says from this point on because it's exactly explaining what happened to them during DOS. So JD1 agreed to become CC1's slave and provide more collateral that eventually included her credit card numbers, along with letters granting CC1 permission to use the numbers to make changes. That's fucking devious.
Yeah.
CC1 ordered JD1 to travel nearly every week from her home in Brooklyn to Clifton Park, where she stayed with CC1 and CC2. Basically, this girl is staying with Allison Mack and India Oxenberg at Allison Mack's urging that she needs to come out there every weekend. Come hang out with us. Stay with us.
And just so you guys are kind of aware, it's like a 4 to 5 hour drive to get out of Brooklyn, counting getting out of the city to get up to the Capital Region in Clifton Park where the compound is. So that's a bit of a hike every weekend.
Yeah. While receiving assignments from CC1, that's the whole point, you're her slave. It seems the first time that any of this is related to sexual grooming was when CC1 told JD1 that she had to be celibate for 6 months. Eventually, JD1 received orders that involved contact with Keith Raniere. So JD1 is tasked with getting Keith to send JD1 an email. So essentially, her master said, you need to do your best in order to get Keith to notice you and respond to you via email. And she eventually succeeds at this.
See, it's just, Keith is such a weirdo that he can't just kind of go up to these women, even if they're kind of groomed. He wants that, like, little bit of the chase or to feel wanted, which is such, like, a incel thing.
Well, the crazy part about this is at this point, none of these women in DOS, except for his direct slaves, know anything about Keith's involvement whatsoever. Yeah. So when your master tells you, look, you need to get Keith to notice you, they don't realize that Keith is giving the order to do this. They don't realize that Keith is waiting and expecting this. They honest to God think that they have to like continuously reach out to him or sneakily try and get his attention so that they can get an email and show their master, look, I did exactly as you said. You know, so eventually she manages to get this email, and then it only gets worse from there.
You know, one night while JD1 was staying with CC1 in Clifton Park, CC1 received a text message from Keith. CC1 then woke up JD1 in the middle of the night and assigned her to meet Keith and to tell him that she, JD1, would do anything he asked her to do. JD1, of course, did as she was ordered, and Keith asked her what the worst thing he could order her to do was. She told him initially that she thought it would be something sexual, but that the worst thing would be if he were to ask her to kill herself or someone else.
That's so scary.
JD1 gets super dark, and I can't necessarily blame her because he leaves it kind of open, you know? Not in some weird perverted sexual way. He just leaves a statement.
I mean, she's already been ordered to say, I will do whatever you say.
Yeah.
And so they're walking together, and he's kind of like almost like a messiah complex dude. Like, he's the leader of this spiritual movement, this self-help guru. And you've just said you'll do anything, and you're thinking of the worst thing he could ask you. And it's like, you know, what could he ask you that would be so scary?
Yeah.
And they really, honest to God, think that whatever he says, you're just supposed to do.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
So that night ends, and he just ends it with saying, I don't believe you. Like, I don't believe you would do anything I tell you to do. And the next day, CC1, Allison Mack, gets another text message from Keith. So in the middle of the night, Allison Mack goes and wakes up JD1, and she tells her, this is your assignment. Go to the end of the driveway and meet Keith. And when you meet Keith, you're going to tell him again. Tell him that you will do anything he asks you to do. That is my order to you. So JD1 gets up, and she does as she's ordered, and she meets Keith. Keith then leads her to a house across the street. And at that house, Keith directed her to remove all her clothes, and he made comments about her naked body. He then blindfolds her, and he leads her into a car, and in that car they just drive around in a manner that made JD1 think that he's trying to prevent her from figuring out where they're going.
I'm going to put a stop here because, you know, with Keith being this weird motherfucker, you know, there's always these discussions about, like, do you like big boobs or little boobs? Like,
where the hell are you going?
No, he's making comments about a naked body in front of him who is sort of not necessarily even willing, but, like, he's that type of guy who gives the rest of us bad names because, like, you know,
I feel like he's the kind of person that, like, when she takes off the clothes, he sits there with, like, a permanent marker and just circles shit.
Yeah, and, like,
because he has a type, and his type is underage girls. He likes women to be so skinny that they're basically on a starvation diet.
Yeah.
It's a child's body. And to think that you would take... This is an actress. This is a girl that's in shape and looks good and has had a problem with them telling her to be celibate. You know, like, she's a good-looking girl and who's young. And here he is making these comments about her body. Like, it's a way to hurt her. Because, you know, here's this leader. Here's a person you just said you'd do anything they just say. And the first thing he does is get you naked, so you're defenseless and you're in a position of weakness. And then he emotionally, like, works on your brain by telling you everything that's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And it's like every armchair detective, you know, you hear all these things that's going to happen if you do such and such, and you think, okay, if I was in that situation, I would bury the body this way, or I'd lead someone this way, or I would drive. He's like, okay, I'm going to drive erratically and they won't know where we are. Except for the fact is they're at the fucking compound in Clifton Park.
He
so,
probably
like,
just drove around the neighborhood twice.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't think they went far. In fact, I think she knows exactly what area she ends up at. They pull over somewhere and she's led through some trees. And she's brought into what she believes is a shack.
They went through the garage door.
I don't know, when she's unblindfolded, well, she's not. Ugh, it's so scary. Okay, how do I put this? So she is led through some trees, and she believes she's brought into a shack. Once she's inside the shack, Keith ties her to a table. Okay? He ties her to a table blindfolded. This person she didn't know who was in the room before, they come up to the table and they begin performing oral sex on her. And as this is happening, Keith is circling the table and making comments like about them, about what's going on. Although JD1 does not want to participate in this sexual activity whatsoever. Literally, what this is rape.
Yeah.
This is rape. She's tied to a table, and a person she didn't know was there is raping her. And she does not want to participate, but she's so scared that if she doesn't act accordingly to the way Keith is suggesting right now, her commitment to DOS will be considered broken, and her collateral is going to be released.
Yeah, and that's not a good place to get you into.
So, yeah, she participates.
Yeah, and in the next, in the following months, JD1 had repeated sexual contact with Keith, including oral sex and sexual intercourse on multiple occasions.
Yeah, so this was the first. This was not the last.
It's not the exception to the rule here. This is exactly what's going on. He would take her to a space that he called the library, which was on the second floor of his house and included a hot tub and a loft bed.
The library is his fucking bedroom.
Yeah, and
that's all it is. It's just a bachelor hot tub, it's
sex
a pad.
call captain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keith told JD1 he was CC1's master and JD1's grandmaster.
He's so creative.
He is such a great names, guys. And explained that he conceived the concept of DOS. So he says it to her, and, he explains that he could order JD1 to have sex with him, but then claimed that was not what he was doing.
Yeah, he's telling her, I could definitely order you to have sex with me, but I don't do that. I don't order women to have sex with me.
No, not at all.
These women want to have sex with me.
And, maybe it's because I'm a straight male, but he does not seem like he could be anyone's type. So during the time that JD1 was a slave to CC1, CC1 required her slaves to provide specific collateral that JD1 later discovered was purposed for Keith. CC1 regularly required her slaves to pose for nude photos, including one occasion close-up of their vaginas.
Mm-hmm.
So CC1 would send the photographs to Keith, who would respond, which CC1 would sometimes relay to her slaves.
So she's contacting Keith, but the slaves aren't supposed to know who she's in contact with, other than she knows, their master has a master.
Yeah.
And every now and then he sends a comment, she turns around, and she does what she tells him. She does what the comment says.
Yeah, and sometimes these responses are that the photographs are not graphic enough, or that the girl needs to smile more.
Oh my god, you need to smile more.
And,
you don't smile enough.
Then he'd make them have to retake the photos.
Can you imagine having to take a nude picture of yourself with a close-up of your vag and being told to smile harder? Smile, look like you love this.
Yeah, no.
It's disgusting. On one occasion, JD1 actually managed to see an exchange on CC1's phone in which Keith was sent a nude photo that CC1 had just taken of all her slaves. And, well, at least on JD1's level. I can only imagine. Yeah. So Keith ended up writing back, and this is the response that JD1 saw. And Keith writes back, quote, "All mine," and then has a smiling devil emoji.
Yeah, you're a fucking creep, Keith.
At one point, JD1 expressed to Keith that she was having financial difficulty with these frequent trips to Clifton Park, between Brooklyn and Clifton Park, and she was saying, she couldn't afford it anymore. And when she told Keith this, he became really frustrated with her, and he goes and takes this bag out, and inside this bag is $10,000 in cash. And he just pulls this from a drawer in the library, and he looks at her and he says, "Does that make you happy? Here, fine. Does that make you happy?" I could just hear Keith stomping across the room and pulling this bag out.
Yeah, like a pouty man-child.
But the best part about this is he pulls out this fucking bag and shows her $10,000 in cash, says, "Does this make you happy?" And he's not even giving her the bag. He doesn't just hand her a bag of $10,000 in cash. He says, look, take what you need out of here. Does that mean whatever you want? Like, it's so abusive.
Yeah.
When somebody has to come for you and say, look, I can't do this, I need help, and you throw an option in their face, but they're still forced to make the decision of how much an option to take, and they're going to judge you on what you do with that. So in this case, JD1 only takes enough cash in order to pay for her trips. Like, I guess for a ticket, I think maybe a train.
Probably a train.
Or a bus. Probably a train.
To me, the drive would be longer than you would take on a car. Or the drive would actually be shorter than going to the airport and taking a flight, so...
Either way, she only takes enough cash to get her, like, there and back. And on one occasion, when she needed money, Keith gave her $1,000 from the bag. You know, so here's the $10,000, but, like, you can't really have that. And so JD1 ends up also expressing her frustration at having to be celibate and the fact that she can only be sexual with Keith. And every time she expressed her frustration with this, Keith would encourage her to wait a year. Like, just do this for another year. It's good for you. It's good for your growth, your spiritual blah, blah, whatever the fuck he's trying to express. And when he says this, wait a year, he ends up giving JD1 hope that when he says a year, that at the end of that year, she's going to be able to stop doing this with him.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like that's exactly what he was trying to do, too. He's one of those abusive motherfuckers.
It sounds so sad to realize that something that simple is enough to give someone hope.
Yeah.
I hope this will stop. I hope on your own you'll just leave me the fuck alone and I can have a normal life. Unfortunately, Keith does not like this. He's good at saying things and then he's good at fucking you over. So when JD1 would end up bringing up the 1 year period to Keith would change the date every time they talked about it. He would change the date where he said that year started. So every time she hoped like she was 1 day closer and she'd talk about it a month later, that wasn't the actual date anymore.
Maybe it's because I don't run my own little sex cult, but I just can't stand a lot of this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I guess you just need to be more desensitized.
I mean, I guess I just need to join a sex cult.
So JD1 was also directed by Keith to befriend and learn information about an ostracized member of NXIVM. So, like, it wasn't just always about having sex with Keith. A lot of these women were, like, still doing the coffee thing for the masters, cleaning their houses, like, doing
1950s
chores.
housewives.
But Keith also has this imagined thing where, like, he has enemies and people who have crossed him, and he does sneaky shit like this where he gets people to prey on those people. He wants their emails hacked. He wants them followed. He wants you to go and befriend them without them knowing that you're connected to NXIVM and Keith. And so she's ordered to do so. And as part of the plan, Keith told her to make a false social media profile and then even eventually meet this person. I mean, that's the extent that he's, like, doing this undercover bullshit against people he's perceived have crossed him.
That's a normal response to anything.
May 2017, after watching other DOS members manage to defect without having their collateral released, JD1 told CC1 and CC2 that she wanted to leave DOS, that she was leaving DOS. This caused CC1 and CC2 to do a 2-hour intervention with her, during which they basically berated her about leaving. They told her she was basically a piece of shit. She was breaking her vow, like she was being a weak woman. How dare you leave, 2 hours.
I can only imagine the type of shit, like, once you're in that deep, like, how they don't even have to, like, really reach all that far to make these vows seem like they're kind of like a real thing, like...
It is. It's all... They have everything documented. Everything is written and signed. Your fucking house is written and signed over to these people. She's given her credit card numbers and permission for them to do whatever they wanted with it.
Yeah.
The credit card company already has her voice on record going, yeah, they could do whatever. Here's a letter saying the same. I mean, she's basically royally fucked if they ever use this.
Yeah.
And... they do this 2-hour intervention with her, but luckily for JD1, eventually, besides this intervention, she really does come to think that she can leave and they probably won't release her collateral.
Well, if you've got all that collateral, and the second you start releasing this shit, and if you release it in droves for like 1 or 2 people, it's definitely something that's come up, and it's going to get attention to where that all came from.
Yeah. Well, Keith does one of his tried and true methods, and after the intervention, Keith meets with JD1, and he tells her she needs to return all the money he's given her. Everything she's taken to do these trips to come see him, that wasn't a gift. That was a loan.
Indian giver.
You need to repay that
Native
shit.
American giver.
So that's, as far as the FBI report goes, that all has to do with JD1. And honestly, to me, that's some of the scariest shit you could have said. I mean,
yeah,
she was raped by God knows who.
Yeah.
I mean, and the forced sex, to me, that's still rape.
It is.
But you're doing this under the belief that, like, you've literally handed over everything that's going to ruin your life. And I know that people might not feel bad for these folks because you're like, well, you walked into this.
But still feel bad for them. Like,
yeah, they did it from the beginning. Like, before you even knew what you were in, you were already in it.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
So now that brings us to Jane Doe 2. JD2, as we're going to call her because it's so much easier than saying Jane Doe, is an actress and model located in Los Angeles. In 2016, she began taking NXIVM classes and became friendly with CC2. In November of that year, in Clifton Park, CC2 and JD2 took a walk, and CC2 told her about a secret society that transformed her life. She then told JD2 that to learn more, she had to give up more collateral.
Yep, that's the key.
JD2 did this in the form of a video in which she divulged a damaging secret. Ooh, dark past.
It's just worse, though. Like, here's an actual video. Like, you can't deny any of that.
Yeah, I know. And afterwards, JD2 was told about DOS and agreed to become CC2's slave. Eventually, CC2 told JD2 that CC1 was her master, and therefore JD2's grandmaster.
Again, we're so clever.
Yeah, we're just making family trees. CC1 then suggested JD2 temporarily move to Clifton Park, New York, and spend more time with CC1 and CC2. JD2 then began spending more time in Clifton Park as she was suggested, but would travel back to LA, regularly for work, because that's where her entire life was. Two of JD2's first acts of self-denial were to refrain from sex and masturbation.
So no, you gotta be celibate.
Yep. Yeah, it's even worse now. At one point, Keith sent JD2 a message in the middle of the night while she was staying in Clifton Park and requested that she go on a walk with him. During the walk, Keith told her sexual jokes, and over several walks, JD2 told Keith that she wanted to open up a t-shirt business, and Keith expressed interest in it. Oh, that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's probably how he really said it. He even said he would partner with her. JD2 then left for LA for a job, and while there, Keith sent a text message saying, "If you want to start this business with me, then come back. The sooner the better."
So basically, almost a threat. Like,
yeah.
Hey, here's this thing that you wanted. Like, the one thing you told me you really, really wanted in your life, and I'm basically going to give it to you, but you better come get it.
Yeah, and she's a model and an actress, so all these jobs for her are definitely going to be taking more time. It's not
all the way in LA. Like, they can't. It's not like this other girl in Brooklyn. Like, they have to convince her why she has to come back.
Yeah, and why it's worth it. JD2 returned to Clifton Park and was soon given a new assignment. This included being kept on a diet of 860 to 1,000 calories a day, so nothing.
A starvation diet.
Yeah, a starvation diet. And after several months, JD2 received a text message from CC1 stating that CC1 wanted to talk to her concerning a special assignment.
Yeah, we're playing spies again.
Yeah, it drives me wild. Like, just
they have to make it seem unique and special. You're in this special club. You're doing special assignments. These are really, like, changing your life for the better. Like, they have to, like, make believe all this bullshit for this to work.
Yeah. Here we got CC1 and 2, then contacted JD2 and told her the assignment was to seduce Keith.
Oh my god.
So, we're playing all the greatest hits, guys. And have him take a picture of JD2 to prove she had done it.
Again, we're playing the game where we're acting like Keith has no idea, and you have to go out of your way to get Keith to do stuff for you.
And then, hey, Keith, wouldn't it be cool if we took a picture of this?
I mean, he probably thinks women are so stupid because here they are, like, trying to trick him, and ooh, he really knows. It makes him feel so smart. And they do. They have to do stupid shit and beg him for things when he full out knows, like, it's his order in the first place.
Yeah.
So now she has to get a picture of herself taken by Keith to be like, oh, prove, like, oh, I was with him or he did this.
And, here we go. CC1 telling JD2 that this assignment was a privilege that few women had the honor of experiencing. Like, just the terminology they're fucking using. And then she also goes on to say that CC1 herself and CC2 had both had this assignment. So not so special. At the end of the phone call, CC1 told JD2, I give you permission to enjoy sex with Keith.
Oh my god.
Oh, you're so kind.
But, I mean, ugh, gross.
Yeah. JD2 then expressed that she did not suspect Keith was involved with DOS until the phone call, and asked CC1 if Keith knew about DOS.
I'm so confused. Like, this girl's claiming it took several walks with Keith before he even starts, like, hitting on her. And now all of a sudden, like, she still doesn't know that... Keith's involved? Is Keith involved? Does he know about this? You want me to have sex with this guy? Come on, you don't think he fucking knows? What, this is just, like, fun for everybody else? Like, how... It just...
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Yeah, no. And after she's asking this, CC1 denies it, saying that Keith doesn't know about DOS.
Yeah, no, he totally doesn't know. This is, like, totally our plan.
Yeah.
It's for our benefit that you have sex with Keith.
And after this call, JD2 started making arrangements to leave DOS in order to avoid having sex with Keith. Like I said, he's not a pretty man.
I mean, she definitely decides to, like, hit the trail long before JD1 ever did.
Yeah.
I mean, all it did is like this one threat of having to sleep with Keith, and she's, like, done.
Yep, nope. And she retrieves a car that she loaned to CC1, she gets her cat, she gets all her possessions from Clifton Park, and before defecting, JD2 captured images of collateral belonging to other DOS members, including CC2, from an online Dropbox account, because we have the most secure sex call ever here.
They're idiots.
And, she believed that she could protect the release of her own collateral by having other DOS members' collateral as leverage. So JD2 is a lot smarter.
She's a smart woman
than the average bear.
I mean, like, she knows that they could screw her, so she needs to have something to be like, I got you right back. Don't you touch me.
Yeah.
Good girl. Good job.
And, JD2 officially left DOS in May of 2016. But
that's confusing because we were just saying, okay, so she joined in November 2016. How's she leaving in May of 2016? And I jumped back and forth on the FBI report, and this is just simply a mistype in the FBI report.
She probably joined in 2015, and
yeah, she was. The point is, she wasn't there that long. I think she did come in 2015, but I tried to, whatever.
Yeah, so that's about 6 months.
And then this is essentially what was written out in the FBI report that we hadn't told you before. Like, all these things that they were pulling in DOS. Like, we knew about the collateral, we knew about the branding, but we didn't really know about the personal experience and, like, how it was literally just directed to them to have sex with Keith. There's no other way around it. This is a sex cult.
Yep.
So on March 26th, a complaint was unsealed in federal court in Brooklyn charging Keith with sex trafficking conspiracy, and forced labor conspiracy. That's pretty damning fucking charges, in my opinion.
One of those on its own is pretty bad. You get all three, that's just the hat trick of shitbag person.
On that day, March 26, Mexican authorities arrested Keith at the $10,000 a week luxury villa he was staying at.
What the fuck are you doing $10,000 a week, man?
Dude, these guys, Keith loves to pretend that he's, a pseudo-Jesus, I own nothing, I am a wanderer, people take care of me. But in reality, NXIVM uses a jet. In reality, like, he's got giant mansions. They all have, like, all these really nice things, and he stays at places like this for $10,000 a week. He expects nothing less.
If I was Keith, I would have joined some, like, wandering mariachi band and lived off taco trucks.
He can't possibly, because nobody would think he was a fucking god.
That's true.
So, if you would like...
God of mariachi.
If you would like, you could go online and there's a video. It's really easy to find, and it's Keith getting arrested.
Yay.
And on it, you can see a super concerned Allison Mack who looks just totally lost at the fact of how Keith managed to get arrested. And she's voicing to, like, the other women, like, talking about what they're gonna do before they both, like, they all kind of gather together and they go chasing after him.
Oh my god, we don't have our man.
We gotta go get, like, what are we gonna do?
It's not like he's Ruby
get in the
Rod.
car. We're
Come
gonna
on.
follow him. He's not Ruby Rod.
He's not Ruby Rod. We
near
don't need
as sexy.
We don't need people chasing him.
So, once the Mexican authorities have him, you know, basically arrested, they deport him to the United States. Like,
Welcome
he's
back,
not,
motherfucker.
He's not of interest to them yet. Although there are marked DOS slaves in Mexico at that compound that weren't just like Allison Mack and these women who followed. There are also women living in Mexico attending the NXIVM compound that have been branded.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Mexico is going to end up pulling up charges. But
hopefully.
Essentially, like, he is deported to the United States, and he makes his initial appearance at the federal courthouse in Fort Worth, Texas.
And the following Tuesday at the Texas hearing, prosecutors argued for Keith to remain in custody while he was sent to Brooklyn to face charges, expressing that he's a flight risk.
Yeah, he's already fucking ran.
You know, he's got, you know, countless actresses and heiresses working for him. They can fly him wherever he wants to go.
And he's already ran.
Yeah.
The moment he knew something bad happened, he ran. And he got caught. If you let him go, he's going to go further. I mean, there are countries that won't extradite you. I'm sure at this point he must have learned a lesson.
Yeah, and they also mentioned that Keith and the mother of his child, which I'm not sure if it's that kid that's wandering around.
This is a thing that nobody brings up fucking ever. Remember that kid we told you about? There's a kid that wanders around Clifton Park and everyone kind of raises him and he's being trained in
16 different languages.
5 languages, and he's only allowed to eat like raw vegetables and shit. Like, here in the paperwork it says that Keith and the mother of his child. So remember, originally we said nobody knows where this kid came from, and he supposedly was just like adopted into NXIVM, and Keith's magically adopting him and being so amazing and so good to him. The reality of it is, this is Keith's kid.
Yeah.
And so the mother of his child, they had taken hundreds of thousands of dollars from a bank account that contained over $8 million, and it's in the name of one of his deceased lovers. I'm pretty sure it's the girl that went to a Buddhist getaway in New York and killed herself. But that's my suspicion, okay? The fact is, it's one of his deceased lovers. It's an account that she's dead, but somehow there's still a bank account with over $8 million, and they have stolen thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars from this account. He's definitely a flight risk.
Yeah. You know, and Keith is then moved to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York, under the guardianship of Terry Crews. On March 27th, 2018, FBI and state police raided the home of Nancy Salzman, taking computers and other evidence from her home. Agents seized more than $520,000 in cash in her house. It was stuffed in bags, envelopes, shoeboxes, you name it.
I'm sorry. Can you even picture this amount of money?
No, it's I think you need to use a pallet for it.
Go get yourself like $60 and then go get somebody to give it to you like in ones. Okay, and then go pretend those are just fucking hundreds.
Yeah.
And go try and stuff that in a couple of envelopes and see how quick, like, you need some more.
Yeah.
I mean, the sheer amount of money, $520,000, physical dollars, are hidden around this fucking woman's house.
Well,
in one shoebox, there was more than $390,000.
So I don't know why it's in multiple shoeboxes. It should be in 2 shoeboxes.
I don't know what grandma here is doing, hoarding money away like this, but, like, she didn't fucking run.
The government going to
Why
take
was it, like, it must have been sticking out fucking mattresses.
It's like that scene in Blow. Do you remember that scene? Where they're trying to put all the money away in the house and they don't know where to put it?
There's just no more places to put it. This was the same thing with every, like, drug lord that ran cocaine. At some point, there's no more places to put the money.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Never forget that fucking Nancy Salzman had $500,000 just stuffed around in her house for her to
Just
run away
hanging
with.
You know, and yeah, so we got that. And then in April of 2018, the New York Post also reported that NXIVM headquarters had been moved to Brooklyn, New York, and was being led by Claire Bronfman.
Gee, Keith's arrested and placed in New York, and suddenly the NXIVM headquarters follows.
Yeah, let's leave Clifton Park. It's a silly place.
Allison Mack was arrested in Brooklyn, New York on April 20th,
420 blaze it.
2018 on the same charges as Keith. So it takes about a month, but they got her too. And then on April 24th, she's released on a $5 million bail. And she gets placed under house arrest in the custody of her parents in California.
That must be a fun talk to have mom and dad.
Her parents had to put up their home in order to help her get bond.
Oh.
This is the same parents that she wrote a life-damning letter about where they could have lost everything.
Yeah.
And they literally put up everything so they can have her on house arrest. This bitch has kept slaves, and now she gets to spend time with mommy and watch movies on the couch.
I bet it probably didn't go that easy. But
It did, because she had a fucking Twitter that was still going up until
God
right
damn
before
it.
like April of last year. She was, I'm spending time with my mommy. So I can only imagine that life's not that hard when you are forced to live in their house.
yeah.
During this time, a judge informed her that she was not to associate with anyone from NXIVM. Like, that's her one warning. Like, you got house arrest and don't associate with anyone from NXIVM. Her life is not fucking hard.
No, not at all.
It's insane. In fact, at one point, she will get her lawyers to argue that she needs more freedom in order to better herself and rejoin society. She needs to have more freedom than just the house arrest she's on.
Sorry.
This bitch hasn't done any kind of time. I'm sorry, I guess I shouldn't call her that. Allison Mack hasn't done any kind of time. She hasn't faced any kind of repercussions up until this point. She just has to stay in a house. And it's too much for her.
I'm sorry, you kind of helped create a sex cult. I think you kind of sacrificed your ability to be in society.
Yeah, this is the same woman that gleefully admitted that she came up with the idea of branding people. Not only that, but when you look at that brand, I just want to throw in there that it's not just Keith's initials, like everyone keeps talking about. It's hers. And I was looking it over, and I'm pretty sure I see an LS in there. I'm damn sure that, like, people like Lauren Salzman weren't leaving themselves out of the fray.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is a secret hive for these people. When they said slave, they meant it. And they get this power from owning people. So the brand, I don't think, Lauren's there getting people to get them branded. I definitely think her initials were in it. So, May 4th. Keith pleaded not guilty. This is what he always does, obviously. Your best option is to always say you didn't fucking do this shit.
Jesus, I didn't do it.
The Knort. You do it.
The court denied his request for a bail, as well as a early summer trial.
Yeah, he will not stop asking for bail, by the way. It happens a couple of times.
Can I please go home now, guys?
No.
Can I go home? No.
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 I want that old judge back.
Yeah, the judge from the Fatty Arbuckle. No, wait, what?
The Carl Tanzler story.
When Carl was like, so can I have her body back? Jeez, no.
No. Sit down.
God damn it, Carl.
At the time of this May 4th not guilty plea, Keith's lawyers tried to state that everything that happened was consensual. And that's because they kind of have written letters of, hey, I'm putting up this as collateral for this thing. But there's definitely a fine line
Also,
here.
Keith believes that it's consensual. He thinks that these women wooed him even if it was in order to do so.
Yeah, he's fucking loon. Nancy Solisman, her daughter Lauren Solisman, and bookkeeper Kathy Russell were arrested in Albany, New York on July 24th in 2018. Their charges...
3 more drop.
Yep.
Bum, bum, bum.
They're all going to go down soon. Their charges were identity theft, harboring of aliens for financial gain, which means they were definitely shipping in some people from Mexico and Canada, forced labor, sex trafficking, wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, and obstruction of justice.
Yeah, they're pieces of shit.
We can add a whole bunch more, I'm sure. Kathy Russell is being charged with providing a false identification document to an alien crossing the Canadian-U.S. border and conspiring to unlawfully access the email of an unidentified individual, JD1.
Yeah, this is their bookkeeper.
Yeah.
But she's not innocent. She was given orders, hey, you need to make fucking false documentation. Like, you were literally harboring human beings over a border. This is breaking immigration. This is the thing that everyone's freaking out about, like, for people coming into this country and trying to have a life. And these people are doing it so they can have more slaves.
Yeah. And, Russell was set at a bail of $50,000, but it was dropped to $25,000 at the request of her attorney, who claimed that she had next to no money.
Yeah, I mean, despite the fact that Keith is staying in $10,000 a week villas, people like Kathy Russell, the lower totem, the thing with these pyramids is the lower you are, the less you get money, financially, everything.
Yeah, you're not benefiting from
To top it off, a lot of the people at the very bottom actually end up in debt.
Yeah.
So she very well could have nothing.
And, Russell also requested that they modify her no contact order with anyone that had anything to do with NXIVM because they said that, she was all alone and would go broke. They said it would have a draconian impact.
Yeah, they're just trying to claim that, look, Kathy's been with NXIVM for like 20 fucking years, and everyone that she knows is a part of NXIVM, and it's just so unfair for you to deny her contact with basically everyone she knows, to the point where they're trying to say that she won't be able to work because she relies on the people she knows, which is just, fuck you, Kathy.
Yeah.
Like, go get a real fucking job. I don't care if you gotta sling burgers and pick up trash. You go do the right fucking thing. The only thing they said to her was stop talking to people from NXIVM, and she can't do it.
She's addicted to
She's a piece of shit.
Yeah. And then...
Do I have feelings about it?
Maybe. A little bit. I've had feelings about these things before, so I'm going to allow that. Claire Bronfman was arrested in New York City on the same day as the Salzmans. She pleaded not guilty and was released on house arrest after agreeing to post a $100 million bail bond.
Isn't that nuts?
I just can't imagine this kind of money and just here, let's just pay this to get out of jail.
The fact is that's highly unusual. But the idea is she has more than that, and you need, in order to keep her nearby and realize that she won't be a flight risk, you have to hold something accountable to her that would be worth it. I mean, the woman has a private island in Fiji. Yeah. She, if you let her out, she could run, but if you hold, basically, capture half her financial, funds, you kind of have her at a disadvantage and she can't leave.
Yeah, and there's nowhere she can go.
I mean, that's $100 million.
That's way too much money.
That's so crazy.
It is alleged that she bankrolled NXIVM, as well as conspired to commit identity theft arising out of a scheme to obtain the email usernames and passwords of perceived enemies and critics of Keith in order to monitor their electronic communications. So this is what she's doing the money. She's bankrolling this fucking cult and going crazy on Keith's weird victim complex.
Yeah, she's definitely his pit bull. He says, this girl's crossed me, my ex-girlfriend is a bitch, and she's going to talk about DOS, and she will go out there and bankroll to get people's emails and their passwords and spy on them.
Yeah.
She is helping to spy on people just because Keith says, I think they're fucking around with me.
Yeah, it's super conspiracy. It's super fucking weird.
These are the same people who, when they started DOS, said that they were starting a group that one day would be able to manipulate elections.
Yeah.
So when you remember that they wanted to manipulate elections, these people are hacking into emails. Whose email are they able to hack into? It could be anybody. It could be your senator, for God's sakes.
Yeah. Claire is also accused of participating in an identity theft conspiracy involving the use of credit card and banking information belonging to one of Keith's sexual partners after her death in November 2016.
Yeah.
So that same account we were talking about earlier. Claire is also accused of money laundering to abet the entry of an alien into the United States, that Canadian probably, who they dragged across the border. Don't know who it is, but Canadian. On January 31st, Keith's attorneys filed a third request to provide Keith with bond due to the government shutdown. They claimed the institution was 44 degrees, and there were noxious fumes, and Keith couldn't,
He couldn't, meet constantly with his attorneys at this time, which, right at that time, January 31st, he's trying to say, oh, I can't meet with my attorneys. I don't think your fucking attorneys are showing up on the 31st, the 1st, or maybe even the 2nd.
Yeah.
But he's saying, I couldn't meet with them multiple times a day. It's not fair. I should be out of here. They did lose some power, but everybody there was forced to be fucking cold. Yeah. He was trying to say that guards were walking around with masks because of the noxious fumes, but people like him weren't provided with one. But when it comes to Keith, I can't tell what's true or not, because by the time this gets filed, basically, within 24 hours, this thing was fixed.
Yeah.
And so, I get it. You're trying to claim that you deserve bail, but if that's the case, then over 1,000 people in jail deserve bail. You know what I mean? And the thing is don't think that Keith gets to sit in a cell with somebody else. He's not sharing a room. He's actually considered a very dangerous inmate, and they do not let him spend time with others. This is how much they think that Keith can brainwash people by just simply talking to them.
I kind of have him pictured in the basement like Hannibal Lecter.
I mean, it's crazy because the fact is we haven't been able to charge, like, we've charged him, but technically he's not guilty yet.
Yeah.
And we're treating him this way. And the government is doing so because at this point we have enough proof. This guy's a fucking monster.
Yeah.
You cannot trust him in the general population, yet alone in an actual society, because he's going to get away and he's going to do this again.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
So then, by March 13th of 2019, Nancy Salzman, formerly known as Prefect,
because we got creative names here in NXIVM,
the co-founder of NXIVM, she pleads guilty. She only pleads guilty to charges of racketeering and racketeering conspiracy, but, to quote Nancy as she sobbed to the judge, "I want you to know I'm pleading guilty because I am, in fact, guilty. I accept this."
I can't take your crying voice serious. Can you just say that like regular people?
"I want you to know I'm pleading guilty because I am, in fact, guilty. I accept that some of the things I did were not just wrong, but sometimes criminal."
And for those of you who are not here, she did have a tear in her eye right now.
Yeah. Fucking Nancy pleads guilty to the least damning of all her charges.
Yep.
Nancy admitted to the judge that she had planned invasions of privacy involving email accounts. She had conspired to obtain the usernames and email addresses belonging to people her group perceived to be enemies and to unlawfully surveil them. She wasn't just gonna fucking, take shit out of their emails. She was just gonna watch them over and over.
Yeah, that's weird.
She was gonna fuck with their lives. She also admitted to the fact that they altered recordings in order to remove things they did not want to hand over to opponents in lawsuits. Because remember I told you whenever you fucked over these people, they'll pull you into court?
Yeah.
So when they hand over any kind of evidence, it's all doctored. So you're not supposed to do that because you're lying to the court. This is what you've been doing to all these other people, but you turn over to court and say, "I wasn't doing that. This is all I was doing." That's what she was saying. In the end, Nancy did, however, insist to the judge that, quote, she still believes some of what they did was good.
See, this is where I have a big issue. You can do some good, because, okay, maybe it is a self-help group. Maybe there is a little bit of good.
The self-help group that forces you to go into, bankruptcy while she has $500,000 worth of cash in her house?
There is a certain point, and it was probably after the first class was offered with NXIVM, that doing any kind of good versus the kind of bad you're doing to these people's lives is you can't even relate it to each other. It's beyond redemption at that point.
Well, Nancy, despite the fact that she pleads guilty and is in fact guilty and said she was guilty, will get to remain out on bond until July 10th, when she is scheduled to be sentenced. Prosecutors have requested that she serve between 33 and 41 months.
Oh, that's it? Yeah?
Yeah, because she's a fucking narc.
Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out a lot of people have been in discussions about, I don't know, making deals, maybe turning in over information. It's going to get really interesting. But the fact is this bitch is only going to have to serve a year and a half, 2 years or something like that. That she has good behavior, and they're saying she has medical problems right now.
Yeah.
So what's crazy is that she literally had $500,000 worth of cash pulled out of her house, but she gets to be considered guilty and put on bond while she pretends that she's going to face jail time.
Yeah. Or real jail time.
I hope she does.
No, so do I. And that's a lot to happen on the 13th, but that is not all that happened on the 13th.
Yeah, why do you think Nancy happened to plead guilty?
On that day, Keith was given additional charges.
He was?
He was.
What was he charged with? So, what could Keith possibly have done?
Do you guys remember back in NXIVM Part 1 of our story? Yeah. Keith was charged with exploiting... It was a long time ago, we understand. Also, 3 hours ago, if you're listening to this all straight through.
Ooh.
Keith was charged with exploiting 2 children and possessing child pornography.
Yeah, he's a fucking pedo.
Yeah, so that's going on. His lawyers have now accused the prosecution of tainting the jury by making these sensational accusations with only 3 weeks before the jury selection.
I mean, yeah, waiting to throw out these charges now does almost, it might taint the jury. So it's going to be on the news. And then in 3 weeks after all this has been in your local news, you're going to get selected for a jury. It's hard not to have feelings or thoughts on this, especially on a topic such as pedophilia. But the fact is that he fucking does it.
Yeah.
We have proof of this.
And this what makes it really, sometimes lawyers are they're trying to be civil servants, but, they're also saying that this is an 11th hour charge.
They're lawyer bullshit
That's
speak.
lawyer bullshit, yeah. That's just saying that this is coming out at the end of the game.
That this isn't even a real charge and that this shouldn't be brought forward. Well, you know what? If Keith does it, it should be brought forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And however, according to a government filing, the new charges against Keith involved a 15-year-old girl that was employed by Nancy, who would become Keith's first-line slave only 10 years after he first poached her.
Yeah, so the woman that just claimed guilty to, racketeering, she hires underage girls so that they'll be working for her and she can coerce them into having sex with Keith. Pedophile charges should be on her, too.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
That's why she pleaded guilty.
Yeah, it's got
That's what I wanted to get to. That's why Nancy needed to make a fucking deal and plead guilty to the least of her charges, because pedophile charges against Keith that literally named Nancy in them, yeah.
Yeah, and, so that's a safety thing for her. And that's why on March 18th, Assistant U.S. Attorney Maura Penza told the judge that the government was in active plea negotiations with 3 defendants.
Yep. Everybody wants to make a deal now. Suddenly, we're not guilty, but we're not associated with Keith. Up until now, everyone was like, we're not guilty. And Keith's not guilty, you guys. Keith is totally great.
It's like when you watch The Daily Show or anything like that, and they make one joke that's a little off color, and then they make a joke that's really off color, and you get the change here. It's like, oh, we're okay with adult slavery. But the second you bring in child, no. We're done with that shit.
We've crossed this fucking line. And that's the thing is, these women, they're suddenly, I don't know. I had no idea. But the fact is if you've been fucking around with Keith more than a year, you know his pedophilia ways.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The fact that he used to hang out with Nancy and his ex-girlfriends at houses full of women and have children come in there, and the girls thought that that's just what you did as an adult. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this. I mean, yeah, everybody wants to make a deal now. So on March 22nd, Allison Mack's lawyers filed a request in order to separate her case from Keith's.
I love Keith, but nope, not going in for that.
But I'm not in love with Keith, and now, I was just led by Keith. So,
you take a horse of water, you can't make her drink.
The thing is while they're doing this and trying to separate her case, they're also seeking to have her superseding indictments against her tossed out, which so sad, too bad you fucking have these charges for a reason. So 1 week later, Lauren Salzman, daughter of Nancy, high-ranking member of NXIVM, and DOS,
and prefect,
the lady that brought in Sarah Edmondson,
number 2.
Yep. She pled guilty to 2 charges of racketeering conspiracy. Although there is no minimum term, but she could face up to 20 years on each count.
Ooh.
Lauren also admitted to something a shitload more terrifying than everything we've heard so far, in my opinion.
All right, let's lay it on us.
Lauren revealed that from March 2010 to April 2012, so a little over 2 years, she kept a woman locked in a room and threatened that woman with deportation to Mexico when, quote, she did not complete her labor requested by herself and others. So her friends could say, hey, come fucking rub my feet. And if you didn't do it right, they would lock you in a room and say, we're going to deport your ass to Mexico.
All right, little Lori.
Oh, my God. So we have to do that story at some point.
Yeah, okay. Little Lori is, go watch...
Don't watch anything. We'll tell you all about it.
I was going to say watch American Horror Story.
We're definitely going to do a whole New Orleans show. But yeah, she, although we've talked about slaves, it wasn't like these women were chained up at a house.
Or locked in a room.
But here is a literal woman locked in a room. That is so fucking wrong and so scary. And
Yeah.
all this woman has pled guilty to is charges of racketeering. But she's admitted to the fact that she has harbored human beings in her home.
Yeah, that's just...
And yet I don't understand. I truly don't understand if someone, like, you have this evidence and you're going to charge them with it anyways, but they like literally say, yeah, I fucking did that. Like, why are, like, what can we charge her with? Can we put her in jail for that too, or does she only go to jail for the racketeering charges?
And that's where court gets so fucking messy.
Can a lawyer or somebody that understands this, can they please write us and explain this to me? Because, like, I'm terrified at the idea that this woman, this horrible human being, is just gonna get minimal time possibly in jail because she just finally admitted to the least of her charges.
I kept someone locked in my basement.
But that's not what she might have to deal with.
I know.
I mean, I don't understand. Like, when men do this and keep young girls in their basement, they go away for life.
Yeah.
You should go away for life. You should never be around another human being ever.
Ever again. I agree.
So, she admitted to that. This is the way Lauren shows regret for all her actions. Quote, I'm very sorry for my poor decision making and decisions that result in the harm to others, and not just the victims in this case, but to hundreds of members of our community and their friends and families as well. Fuck you, Lauren.
Yep.
She literally doesn't feel bad for what she did when the end of your sentence is like, I feel bad for people I don't know. You should feel bad for the woman you locked in a fucking room.
Yeah, no,
you should feel bad for the women you made lay down on a table and you coerced them into branding with a surgical tool.
I think Dexter had more, sympathy than this woman
Dexter
does.
had fucking more morals because the people he was getting rid of were, like, bad people. Lawrence Elsman's that bad person. She never got rid of anybody. She is that person.
So, Dexter, if you're around, you got till September 11th.
So, March 25th, Lauren also signed a 10-page agreement as well as a 1-page Exhibit A attachment that's not currently available to the public. So this is the reason why these women get off with so much shit, is because they're willing to turn in evidence. And so they're getting off with shit. I really, really hope that's not the case. I really hope that we see a lot more justice, but this is why you're starting to see the dominoes fall now.
Yeah.
All right. So Lauren's sentencing date is obviously set for later. And it's set for September 11th, 2019. So keep a watch out for that.
Yeah, we'll keep you guys updated.
Because the whole thing is now that she's pled guilty, like, we have a chart and they're just going to wait to sentence her. We still have Keith and Allison Mack right at this point who haven't pled guilty and they still have to face trial. And that was supposed to come on April 29th. However, everybody's rolling in through the court system and all we have left is Claire Bronfman, Alex Mack, and Keith Raniere.
Alex Mack.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't. I really miss my childhood.
We're not talking about puddle girl with lightning powers.
Okay.
We're talking about Superman's best friend. So,
in a really weird, strange turn of events, it turns out that Claire Bronfman starts hitting up in the news.
Hey, Claire.
So, this whole time, the heiress has been bankrolling the defense and all the defendants. Like, remember I told you everybody was standing firm beside each other?
Yeah.
And it was because Claire had this huge fund put together for all of them, and they were doing, like, a united front all the way up until Keith got these fucking pedophile charges. So, once that happened and everyone starts dropping like flies and making deals, it's funny, it also turns out that this fund, like, literally months into this thing, 2/3 of the fund has been spent.
I wonder how much that fund was.
It must have been hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, it has to be.
But basically, when it starts to get that low, lawyers don't work for free. I don't care if they're sitting there holding your arm as you walk out of the court, or they're hugging you and telling everyone what a great person you are.
$1,000 an hour.
The moment you don't pay them, they do not hold you and hug you and walk you out of court anymore. They literally leave you sitting at that table going, good fucking luck, find a new lawyer. Bye-bye. I'm out. So they finally had to pull Claire and say, look, this is like almost gone. What do you want to do? Like, are you going to re-up this like fund for everybody? And Claire was kind of like, no, nope. Once this is done, everyone's on their own. They all get their own fucking lawyers.
Good luck.
I mean, it must have been enough for her to be like, I don't want to pay for this anymore, especially with them turning.
Yeah.
She must feel extremely betrayed.
Oh, absolutely. On March 28th, though, things keep getting weirder in this case.
Yeah.
And the judge demanded the truth and asked if Claire had retained the services of Mr. Avenatti. I'm not going to pronounce Italian names right.
No,
ever.
you know that name, though. Stormy Daniels.
Oh,
Mr. Avenatti himself. So
that's
suddenly
right.
we go from having a starlet, Allison Mack, we've got fucking heiresses, the Brothmans, we've got just everybody pulled into this thing, and here comes Avenatti out of fucking nowhere, starts hitting the news. Turns out he's been in negotiations with the prosecution on her behalf, but the problem is, when you do that, you're supposed to file with the court saying, hey, guess what? I'm their prosecution. They hired me. And they didn't do that. So after demands, like, the judge literally looks her prosecution in the eyes and says, I want to know the truth. Does he work for you or not? That simple. And it took them several minutes of conferring with each other about whether or not to tell the fucking truth, wherein suddenly Claire acts like she's about to faint and she falls forward into the table. They had to bring her out on a stretcher to another room, and then she ends up walking out on the arm of her attorney. And then later on, it's revealed that, yeah, Avenatti and her lawyer, Grigaros, was not easy name.
There's a name.
They had met with the prosecution like the previous week. Like, he was totally helping them do this. And it looks really fucking bad when you're hiding things this simple.
You know, and then also in April, to keep things getting worse, the judge dismissed 4 of the child pornography charges against Keith.
Yeah, I cannot express how angry and frustrated I am at this.
You know, and I kind of, like, I hate it, but, you know, the legal bullshit that we have to go through, that stuff all happened in what's called the Capital Region, so around Albany and Clifton Park, that area of New York.
And just in
not
case,
in the Eastern District.
Yeah, so just in case, especially for some of our, like, say, European listeners and people not, like, in the United States, like, here we are one entire country, and then we have states. And then when you live in a state, most of these states are very large. And in order to have any kind of good judicial system, you kind of need to cut that up even further. And so most states are basically cut up into like almost 3 parts. You know, I think that's what they're saying more or less with like New York. Like you got the center, the east.
Yeah, so you're going to have like the state Supreme Court, but you're going to have these county courts and these county Supreme Courts. And when I say county, I can more mean regional. That's why I'm saying the Capital Region and then the Eastern District.
And you're like, why does that fucking matter? Why are you telling me this? Well, we're telling you this because the charges were dropped because they were
different jurisdictions.
Yeah. The activity was taking place in the Capital Region of New York, not in the Eastern District where he's like being held right now. So now it's up to the Northern District federal prosecutors to bring those charges back up against Keith, if they so choose.
We got a lot going on here, but we'll probably get him.
It's fucking bullshit. If it's enough to charge you in one place and you literally have to drop it only because of the location, then it should be forced to become a charge elsewhere.
So what else you got for us today, Shan?
Oh my goodness. Okay. That just finally brings us to April 8th. So, April 8th, another one fucking bites the dust.
Wait, like April 8th, like 3 days ago, 5 days ago, 4 days ago.
Just a couple days ago. So, Allison Mack stood before a judge and she tearfully pleaded guilty to racketeering and racketeering conspiracy charges.
Dun, dun, dun.
Allison admitted to luring women to NXIVM in order to be used by Keith and follow his orders. Of course, the charges that she pled guilty to are the least problematic for her because she indeed is charged with sex trafficking.
Oh yeah, definitely.
During her plea, Allison sobbed like a little girl and she was crying so much that the judge had to pause the proceedings in order to ask her if she was all right.
Are you okay, little blonde girl?
Fuck you, bitch.
Are you okay?
Like, how, like, Like, why is this woman getting our sympathy?
Not mine.
She had human slaves that she branded and traded for sex. She traded human beings for sex so that she could get financially covered.
Yeah.
And reimbursed.
It's fucking ridiculous.
That is sex slave trading.
Yeah.
I mean, and here she is crying because she got caught.
Yeah.
So, Allison faces up to 20 years in prison on each count that she pled guilty to. So, she's scheduled to be sentenced in September. And that's it. Now we're just waiting for Keith to come up. April 29th is his court date. And again, here's my fear. We know the things that Allison was doing.
Yeah.
And she, again, pled to the least of the damning ones. What is she going to end up in jail for? Is it enough to just send them for the limited amount of time because they admitted they were guilty and you feel good enough because, you got them somehow? I don't feel satisfied with that.
No, me either. It's close, but not close enough.
And, so that's where we stand. I'm gonna put NXIVM to bed now. Obviously more things are gonna come out after this, and maybe, we'll keep up with it and update you guys, but we're done. No more series.
We might do, a late September part 5 to be like, hey, guys, so we haven't had this in the summertime.
We're not gonna do that.
Yeah, we are. Big shit's gonna hit the fan.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I hope it does. I hope that we see charges coming out of left, right, and center. I hope we don't even know what hits us, and it's a surprise birthday in the middle of the year that we didn't know was gonna come. For my birthday, you guys, please let these people get charged for sex trafficking.
Please.
And that's it. I'm so glad we're done with this. This is crazy. This is happening, and not just like in the middle of America. It's happening in multiple countries, and it's not happening is to the hippy dippy kids from the 60s. This is just happening to upper class America. Sex trade in New York.
Who knew?
Yeah, right. Oh man, but it's wild. So now you guys are just about as informed as us.
Yeah, so we caught you up to 5 days ago.
Yeah, you could watch everything that's going to start hitting the news, because I guarantee just because these women pled guilty, that's not the last you've heard in this month alone.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
And until then, we're done with this. We're going to move on. We're going to bring something fun and different, totally different next week. And until then, you guys know how to reach us. You check us out on Facebook, Twitter, on Instagram.
Don't be mean on YouTube.
Yeah, you can comment on YouTube, I guess. More importantly, if you enjoyed us or want to help us out, please check us out on iTunes and give us a good review. Give us a 5-star and leave a couple words so that we can see it. I read everything you guys leave. And until next time. Maybe not leave everything on your fucking Yahoo email account.
Also, don't use Yahoo. Go to Gmail. It's 2019. Go to Gmail.
All right, guys. Bye.
See ya.